there, my name is Cameron Clark and I am here to offer you a brief yin yoga practice for the kidney and urinary bladder meridian pair. For this practice, you might like to have within reaching distance a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can grab a couple of pillows off of your bed. You might like to have a couple blocks nearby, some yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, you might reach for a couple stacks of books, or maybe a can of beans with a blanket to drape over it so that it's soft against your head if you're choosing it to rest your head on. And then a blanket or two. Any blanket that you have nearby, preferably not something too big so that you can manage to fold it up, but whatever maybe throw blanket you have on your couch might work well. So for this practice, I'll be guiding you through a series of shapes which we will hold together here for about 2 minutes. The benefit of the recorded practices is that in the event that you'd like to stay in a posture for a little bit longer, maybe the sensation is really interesting to you, or there's a process that's coming up for you emotionally that you want to stay with, then go ahead and just pause the video while you're completing the amount of time that you'd like to hold this posture, and then just go ahead and hit play when you're ready to move forward. So you have complete control over how long you hold these shapes. You're not dependent on moving along with the rest of the class. So we'll begin by just getting seated and tuning into our breath. So coming into a comfortable cross-legged seat, you might find a Siddhasana with heels in line with the navel. Maybe a Sukhasana feels nice with the knees in line with the hips, ankles, and knees are stacking. Go ahead and find a little bit of side-to-side movement. Beginning to get oriented to the connection between your body and the earth. And so this practice of becoming aware of where our body is in space requires a little bit of engagement, a little bit of movement, helps us to deepen that awareness past just simply the knowing that we're connected into the feeling that we're connected. And as you move, you may feel a little bit of sensation along the sides of the body or into the hips, along the low back. If at any point you're feeling screaming in your knees, you may want to switch your position. And so continuing with these movements for as long as feels nice, and then eventually we'll make our way towards a place of relative stillness. Relative stillness meaning our body is not moving in big, large movements, but we're allowing for shifts and adjustments as we continue this journey of dropping into the body. Freeing ourselves of this idea that stillness needs to be rigid. Embodying a place of relative stillness. And as you do, I invite you to guide your awareness to the breath. No need to find a laser point focus on it, but just noticing the way that the breath moves through you naturally. As you begin to sit, you may find that the inhales are full. You may find that the exhales are long and slow. You may find that the inhales feel labored and that the exhales feel short and ragged. Or you may find that the breath lands anywhere in between. Whatever you're noticing, just becoming aware. And as you deepen your awareness of the breath, you may get curious about the sensations that accompany this breathing. So you might notice the sensation of the belly expanding, contracting. You may notice the rib cage and the chest rising and falling. You may notice that some of the sensations that you feel are coupled with emotions, emotional states. Making room for those as well. This practice of becoming aware of what's happening in our bodies, what we're noticing in our bodies in the present moment, helps it deepen our ability to discern what our needs are. If I can feel what's happening in my body, I can make the right and sound choice for where I go next. How deep do I choose to take this posture? Or maybe how shallow? Do I need to stay in the posture for longer or shorter? Does the posture that's being offered to me even feel like the right one? You get to decide. It's your practice. And discernment, practice of paying attention and noticing, making active choices rather than avoiding. And so throughout this practice, we will feel strong senses of sensation, and as you do, you may contemplate the benefits of discomfort. The benefits of discomfort. And as you consider those, you may begin to fine-tune your understanding of the difference between discomfort in service of growth and pain in service of suffering. Good. So take just a couple more breaths here. Good. And then bringing one hand to the heart and the second hand on top of it. Taking a moment to set an intention here for your practice if you like. And so the practice today will, as I mentioned, be working with the kidney urinary bladder line. So we'll be working to open along the inner thighs, find stimulation through the lower back and along the backs of the legs and the spine. So forward folding, backward bending, and a little bit of wide leg stretching. So we'll begin by coming into our first posture, sliding the feet forward, letting soles of the feet come to touch. This is our butterfly. And as soles of the feet come to touch, you might allow for the heels to travel away from the pelvis. The distance in which they move is completely up to you, whatever feels better to you. The further away the heels go, the more the sensation will move into both the outer hips and the hamstrings. Good. Taking an inhale, we'll find a little bit of length. If you're sitting up on a blanket, you might choose to slide to the edge of it. Good. And as you find a little bit of length, we'll then begin to fold forward. Let the heart make its way in the direction of the soles of the feet, and then as you hit your edge with the pelvis, you may allow the spine to begin to round. Arms will travel forward, palms facing down if you're looking for more grounding. Allowing the shoulders to be soft, the head to drape. Good. And as we come into our yin yoga postures, we're interested in looking at three things. First, we're curious about our edge. And our edge is a place that we are seeking to find in our posture where there's a moderate amount of sensation that is interesting to us, sensation that gets us curious about what is moving, what is stretching, what is growing in the direction of change. And so this might feel like a gentle tugging on the tissues. Some people say it feels like a dull, throbby, achy feeling over time, very different from sensations of sharp shooting pain. So as you come into your edge and you find that place where you're like, yeah, this is where my body kind of naturally wants to stop. Feels like a good amount of sensation. Then we begin to soften. And the idea would be to soften around the target areas. So here we might soften through the hips. Soften through the hips, soften through the thighs, soften along the spine. And as you soften into the shape, you may find that the sensation changes. As we soften, We're working to move away from larger muscle groups and into the connective tissues, which may change what you're feeling in your body. So based on what you're finding, you may then begin to shift your posture again. Do I need to back out a little bit? Can I move deeper? Is a prop something that would be helpful? Maybe placing a block on the feet to support the head, or a bolster as well. And as you, again, find your edge and begin to soften in, then we stay. And we stay and we hold these postures for extended periods of time. Good to provide ongoing input or information to the tissues of the body and the meridian lines. Meridian lines born of traditional Chinese medicine that stimulate the energy that's moving through the body, which supports us in moving towards optimal health. Good. So we'll be here for about 1.5 minutes we have left. And as we do, I'm wanting to be relatively quiet. And I'll be quiet because as we're in these postures, it's an opportunity for you to connect. Connect to yourself, connect to your breath, connect to what comes up for you in the form of sensation and potentially emotion. Each posture in Yin Yoga has the opportunity to become a mini meditation. Deep, full rounds of breathing. Curious about the intersection between breath, sensation, and a deepening awareness. And if at any point the head hanging heavy feels like it's a little bit too much, feels like it's creating tension in the back of the neck or keeping you from moving deeper, you have the option to bring a block to the feet for the head to support. Or you may pull back from the bones that rest behind the ears, bringing the neck into line with the spine. And as we do that, we lose a little bit of the rounding of the spine, but we gain more in the hips and the pelvis. So the manner in which you move into these shapes helps to modify and inform the type of sensation that you're feeling. Part of this practice is the exploring and getting interested in what feels good today. Not yesterday, not even what you set out as an expectation at the beginning of your practice, but what actually feels good as you move into the shape. We have about 8 to 10 more breaths here. And about 3 more breaths. Good. And so the deeper the shape, the slower we come out. So using the strength of our arms, we'll slowly walk the hands back as we bring the spine back to upright. Good, supporting the knees with the hands as we extend the legs long, leaning back into the support of our arms. We call this a rebound. And the rebound is the space in between action where we allow the benefits of the posture to land. For energy that was bound or stressed, what we might call positively stressed, through the posture to be released and to move through the body. You might notice sensations like warmth or tingling or impulses to move. And all of those are great. And so before taking any action, I invite you to just get curious. Get curious about what you feel, watching it for a few seconds and seeing what happens next. If you find that there is like a nervy, tingly feeling in your body, you might invite the hands to give a little bit of a gentle massage, maybe traveling down the outsides of the legs and up the insides. Down the outsides and up the insides. Good, just inviting and supporting the movement of this energy through the body. Go ahead. Wonderful. Got dog hair all over me. Great. So our next shape is going to be a Y-legged straddle. So from here, we'll let the legs come apart. Sitting up on a blanket can be helpful. And the legs can come as far apart as feels good to you. Doesn't have to be the widest straddle you've ever found. In Yin Yoga, we're significantly less interested in the depth and external image, the way that the posture looks. We're more interested in what's happening on the inside of the body. So your head may not find your toes or your knees, your belly may not find the floor in the fold. We're looking at exploring the natural boundaries of our body and working with them rather than trying to push through them. So it's a nice complement to some of our more yang or active practices. Bolster or pillows can be nice here. I like to place them right in front of me. And as we extend the legs long, you might begin to invite a softening through the thighs, through the calves, through the feet and toes. No need to flex and engage, just allowing the feet to land as they are. Taking a deep full breath in, we find once again that length out of the spine. Good, letting the navel lead as we fold forward at first. We find our edge, and as we find our edge, we begin to soften it. Perhaps your forearms come to the bolster and maybe bending the elbows, letting the head rest in the hands, take any unnecessary stress or strain out of the neck. And again, finding our edge. Finding an edge of sensation that feels appropriate to you in this posture. Good, and then as you do, beginning to soften. Softening around that edge, getting curious about what happens as you do. The information tells me that I can move a little bit deeper today, sliding the bolster a little bit further away from me. Good, softening once again. Good, and then we stay. We stay and we hold for about 2 minutes. And I'm going to be relatively quiet to give you an opportunity to move into an investigation, a mindful awareness of what's happening in your body, what's happening in your heart and your mind, knowing that your intention is there for you, to support you. Good, and I'll check in once or twice, just to remind you that awareness can rest on the breath, can be curious about the intersection of breath and sensation. And that if the mind wanders, that's totally normal. It's very gently guiding your awareness back to the breath, back to sensation, or back to the repetition of your intention in the mind to help focus and soothe your thoughts. As you are here, you might be wondering, is there a specific type of breath that I should be using during this practice? And the answer for today, for this practice, is no. You may choose to engage your Ujjayi breathing if that feels useful, or you can allow your breath to just move naturally. And as it does, using the breath as information, letting that information guide and inform where you go next and what's happening on deeper energetic levels of the body. So Staying open and interested into the natural movement of your breath and tapping into it for support as needed. Making any modifications you need to in your shape, maybe chasing that edge of sensation has started to soften. Would you like to take it deeper? Perhaps sensation has grown stronger. And decide to back out a little bit. We have about 8 to 10 breaths here. Choosing to slide my bolster to the side, taking it a little deeper for the last few seconds. Slowly letting your hands take you all the way back up. Good. Lovely. We'll recline back. Let the legs slide forward. Good. Taking a moment for the rebound. Noticing what you find. And of course, during this time, you can windshield wipe if you like. Really, whatever balancing feels good. Just taking a moment to rest. And then as you feel ready, and of course resting for as long as you like, you have the option to pause the video during the rest time as well. We'll start to make our way onto our bellies. Slide that bolster out of the way. And so as you come onto your belly, letting the feet come about inner hip distance apart, maybe outer hip distance if that feels good to you. Coming into a Sphinx pose. So the forearms will come slightly forward from the shoulder to create a tripod-like effect with the elbows and the pelvis. Palms can come to touch, resting on the earth, or if you want palms on the earth, a little bit more, asks a little bit more of the shoulders. It's really what feels good to you. You want elbows in general in line with the shoulders. Good. Taking an inhale, we'll find strong center line. Letting the crown of the head lift, keeping the neck in line with the spine, not throwing it back or dropping it forward. We don't want to cut off the flow of energy through the neck to the brain. We're letting the heart stay open. We're playing with this idea of pressing forearms into the earth, finding nice strong arms, or dropping the chest through the shoulders, kind of letting the upper body hang. And pressing down to engage, good, maybe dropping in. Noticing what feels better in your body, more interesting to you today. And then with whatever you choose, guiding your awareness down to the pelvis and the legs, letting the legs be nice and soft. Just relaxing on the earth, the pelvis as well. The glutes are relaxed. Good, letting the belly rest on the earth. Good, and as you're here, beginning to bring your awareness to the breath. And based on what you notice, you may think to yourself or wonder, do I need more support? And if more support in the low back is needed, you might engage the inner thighs, isometrically pulling, engaging the inner thighs towards one another as if there was a magnet on either side reaching to the center line. Good, keeping the glutes relaxed. Good, that may support the low back, and then you may choose to draw the navel into the spine on both the in-breath and the out-breath. We're working to stabilize while maintaining a sense of relative softness through the lower half of the body. Good. So we'll be here for just about a minute, and these times are very loose. We'll be here for just about a minute. You may begin to notice strong sensation in your arms, noticing and continuing to guide your awareness to the breath as long as there's no pain. I'm going to invite a softening through the jaw here if you're finding that there's a good bit of tension. Allowing the brow to soften as well, the eyes to kind of settle back into the skull. When you get overstressed, overwhelmed, or busy, the eyes tend to move forward in the eye sockets. And so we want to invite them back. So as you draw the ears back over the shoulders, invite the eyes to move back with it. Pressing into palms to bring the elbows wide, letting the forehead come to rest on stacked palms, or maybe letting the arms come alongside the body and one ear to come rest down. Giving yourself a moment here to rest. Getting curious about sensation as it moves. Knowing that as you rest, you have options for how you might like to neutralize, maybe bending through the knees and rocking the heels from side to side. Maybe lowering the feet and rolling through the pelvis. Good, so we'll be here for just a few more breaths. Letting the back body swell with breath. Prepare for our second round. So letting the hands come forward, rising back into Sphinx pose. Again, the palms can come to touch or to rest on the earth. Finding that nice strong center once again. Lengthening the neck. Good. Following the curvature of the spine. And if this sensation feels like a little bit too much in the low back, that's just fine. You have the option to walk the elbows further forward to decrease the depth of the back bend in the lumbar spine, maybe even bringing opposite hands to biceps or elbows to provide a little bit more support. And so coming into your edge, whatever that looks and feels like for you. Beginning to soften. I'm getting curious about whether or not this is the place that you'd like to stay. You may find that a little bit of a deeper posture is something that you're interested in. And if that's you, we might move into seal pose. So bringing the hands wide, fingers pointing in the direction of the corners of the mat in general. Starting to straighten through the arms. Good, so the arms are nice and sturdy and strong. The pelvis remains connected to the earth. So this is not an upward facing dog. Good, and you can deepen this shape by walking the hands back closer to the pelvis. Good. Lovely. And as you come into this shape, you may find that, this is the place that I want to be. Or you may find that the sensation is a little too strong. And so you have the option as well to glide the hands forward. Good. So there's a lot of option here within this posture, within this transition between Sphinx and Seal. And so as you find your new edge and begin to soften into it, keeping in mind that if at any point the sensation feels too strong, you can titrate out by coming back into your Sphinx pose. So begin to settle into stillness now, settle into softness. Guiding our awareness to the breath, the awareness of sensation. Softening through the jaw, relaxing through the brow. Letting a soft quality land on your face. Maybe turning the head to the right. Turning the head to the left. Good. Back to neutral. And so remembering that we're looking to awaken a curiosity about sensation in the body, about how these shapes are manifesting in the form of physical sensation, breath, quality of thoughts in the mind, and emotion as it arises or dissipates. And so should the physical posture that you've chosen become a barrier to your deeper experience, the invitation might be to back way off, to return to a sense of ease in the breath and relative comfort in the body, and then progressively, over time, moving deeper once again. Practice of kindness in the direction of self, kindness in the direction of the body, which really are, at the end of the day, one and the same. So we'll take about 5 or 6 more breaths here. And slowly lowering down, letting the forehead stack on palms or letting the opposite ear make its way to the earth. Giving yourself a few moments here to rest.
for the body to receive the benefits of the posture. Taking whatever gentle movements you might like to neutralize. And as we begin to rise off of our bellies, bringing hands underneath the shoulders and tucking the toes. Rising up, perhaps at first through hands and knees, and then into our plank. Good. Holding here for about 3 breaths, neutralizing through the spine, finding strength and stability. Good. 2. And 1. Good. Lowering the knees and sitting back onto the heels. Good. Reaching for our bolsters. So grabbing your bolster or a stack of pillows, and we'll place it on the back end of our mat. So the next shape we're going to be coming into is a reclining saddle pose or a reclining hero, known more traditionally in our vinyasa practices. So as we begin to settle into this shape, we might bring knees together and feet wide. So the inner ankles will come along the outer edges of the hips. And if this doesn't feel super supportive, or there's an unnecessary or overwhelming amount of pressure, I guess I should say, through the knees, you have the option to take perhaps a folded up blanket and place it underneath the hips. You also have the option to take a folded up blanket, to lay it on top of the feet and slide that blanket back behind the knees to help relieve excess pressure. Good. No matter which variation you choose. And I will offer a modified option if coming into this reclining hero pose is not an option for you because of knees or ankles, which is a reality for more than just a few of us. So if this is the variation you're coming into, we'll slide this bolster about 5 fingers distance away from the pelvis. Finding a nice tall spine. Good. And working to keep a little bit of a bend in the low back, which is why we place this bolster a little bit further away from the pelvis, we'll begin to recline back. You'll notice that I am not tucking my pelvis under, but keeping it tilted forward. And so as we recline back, good, allowing the rib cage to find the bolster or stacked pillows and letting the body come to rest. The arms can rest alongside the body, or perhaps you reach for opposite elbows overhead, stimulating but an opening through the heart and the lungs. Good, deep full rounds of breathing. If this variation doesn't feel like the one for you today, that's just fine. I'd like to invite you to find yourself in another round of Sphinx pose, or perhaps finding a block or your stack of books and coming into a supported bridge pose. We'll be here for a few minutes, closer to 2. As you rest, letting your awareness come to the breath. Watching the way that the breath moves through your body. Noticing the changing sensation through the legs, through the hips, through the spine. softening into your edge and staying. Practicing awareness within relative stillness. Is there any part of you that might like to soften even just 5% more? Are you noticing tension in the jaw, through the eyes? Maybe you find that having the arms overhead is a little bit restricting, and so you bring the arms alongside the body. And if you are feeling like you might like to take this shape a little bit deeper, you have the option to rise up, remove the bolster from behind the back, and lower all the way down onto your back, giving a little bit more depth to the back bend, asking a little bit more of the quads as far as opening, a little bit more range of motion in general. Remembering that the practice is about the evolution of your awareness, of sensation, breath, watching the changing edges of our physicality with time and softness rather than excess effort. So sometimes when we stay the course, we just allow time to be in this space, we find that depth comes naturally without having to search for it, to pull for it, or to put forth any effort. Just the allowing makes it possible for us to deepen. Take about 5 or 6 more breaths here. And remembering that if you'd like to stay for an extended period of time, just go ahead and hit pause on the recording, let yourself stay. And hitting play again when you're ready to pick back up. Two, and 1. Good. Letting the arms come alongside your body. If you're in this reclining saddle, pressing the hands into the earth to rise up. If you are in your supported bridge or sphinx, coming on to your belly or pressing into the feet to gently remove blocks from underneath the pelvis. Good, and we'll all begin to make our way just flat onto our backs into a Shavasana shape to rest for a moment. Good. as you're here, allowing the body to naturally unwind, for blood flow to return to the spaces that were bound. In this example, perhaps the backs of the knees, and so the legs may feel a rush of blood and energy in that direction now that the channels have been reopened, energized. And so, again, these spaces in between the postures that we take are just as important. Our awareness, of what it feels like for the body to neutralize is valuable information. As stressful environments and senses of fear and overwhelm begin to creep in, we become acutely aware of what it looks and feels like to grow more activated, more overwhelmed with every passing moment. And the more emphasis we place on understanding what it looks like as things get more intense, the less comfortable we become with the feeling of things becoming less intense. And so as we move out of these postures, it gives our body an opportunity to reestablish what it feels like to soften, to move from a place of activation where we're asking something of the body and into a space where we're asking very little of ourselves. And that's also an okay place to be. In the balance of yin and yang, of action and restoration. And restoration isn't always about feeling great all of the time. Sometimes it includes struggling through discomfort in order to come out the other side more resilient. Good. If you're ready for your Shavasana, you're welcome to stay right here. Otherwise, we're going to pull our knees into the chest, giving yourself a little squeeze. We're going to take a very gentle twist. So with the knees hugging into the chest, we're going to just drop them over to the right. Good, knees are stacked. Letting the left arm come overhead, reaching towards the top left-hand corner of the mat. Plenty of room between the shoulder and the neck. But maybe moving that arm around to find whatever position feels good, where you're feeling a little bit of a tugging, a gentle opening across the chest, across the pec area. Good, finding that edge, softening in, and we'll be here for a few moments. Letting the breath be satisfying. Whatever that looks and feels like for you. Playing with the turn of the head, maybe the gaze comes to the left, maybe the gaze looks to the right. And if you're not sure which option feels better for you, maybe you try both and land on whichever one you decide feels good in your body. As we're making our way towards our final Shavasana, our supported rest, I'll become more and more quiet in preparation for stillness. And taking about 8 to 10 more breaths here. Good, very good. Gently bringing the knees back through center. Letting the feet come to the earth. Letting the spine neutralize. We'll take a few breaths here. Good, and then hugging those knees in once more. And taking them over to the left, spinal twist. Knees close to the chest, right arm extends overhead. Go moving that arm around until you find a position where there's a nice gentle tugging on the tissues. Good. Gazing to the right, gazing to the left. Making whatever decision feels best for you as to where to place your head. Maybe it's neither and you allow your head to be neutral. And we'll be here. I'll be quiet as we let our awareness continue to drop in. And staying open to awareness of breath. Sensation. Good. Let's take about 8 to 10 more breaths here. Very good. Bringing the knees back through center. Good. Giving yourself maybe one more squeeze. And then preparing to make your way into your final resting pose, your Shavasana. Be extending the legs long or placing pillows or blankets underneath the knees. Closing the eyes, or letting the eye gaze settle on something in the room that feels neutral or pleasant to look at. And as you settle into your Shavasana, I'd like to invite you to stay for as long as feels good to you. There's no expectation for you to rise in any specific time. To give your body permission to rest for as long as feels good for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this practice. Feel free to check out where you can practice with me on my website, CameronClarkWellness.com.